Good evening. Today is Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. I'm Heather Peffley, Clerk for the City of Manistee. The City Council's July 21st, 2020 regular meeting being conducted remotely, where all members of the City Council are in separate locations and not at the City Hall Council chambers, will be called to order by Mayor Roger Zielinski shortly. As always, this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast on Manistee TV cable channels 189 and 190. And will also be available at manisteetv.org. There will be no video associated with this meeting. The microphones of all members of the City Council, the City Manager, City Attorney, and City Clerk will always be live unless there's an audio disruption. I will now begin to unmute and check each microphone that will be live during the meeting. Good evening, Councilmember Cooper. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Heather.
Good evening, Councilmember Beaton. Can you hear me?
Yes, Heather, I can.
Good evening, Mayor Zielinski. Can you hear me? Mayor Zielinski, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, Heather. Thank you.
Okay.
I muted my phone by error.
Okay. Good evening, Councilmember Cipcic. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Councilmember Szymanski, can you hear me?
Good evening, Heather. Yes.
Mayor Pro-Tem Grabowski, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Heather.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
City Manager Thad Taylor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
And City Attorney George Saylor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
As a reminder, council members, please clearly state your name before commenting and mute your device when you are not speaking. Mayor Zielinski, we are ready to proceed with the meeting.
Thank you, Heather. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please take the roll.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yeah. Here.
Councilmember Beaton.
Here.
Mayor Zielinski.
Here.
Councilmember Cipcic.
Here.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Here.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Here.
City Manager.
Here.
City Attorney.
Here.
DPW Director.
Here.
Finance Director.
Here.
Police Chief.
I'm here.
Fire Chief.
Here.
City Engineer.
Here.
Roll call complete.
Thank you. Citizens' comments on agenda-related items. Each person waiting in the virtual waiting room will be called individually by the city clerk by the last four digits of their telephone number. Individuals will be asked if they have a comment or if they are passing. It is very important that those giving comments have a good phone connection and no sound or noise whatsoever in the background. Televisions and all forms of audio should be muted. Otherwise, there will be a disruptive audio. If the issue cannot be corrected by the caller, we will move on to the next person in line. For those who don't have an agenda tonight, on the consent agenda, we have approval of payroll, approval of minutes, payroll, invoices, and notification regarding next work session. Other agenda items are consideration of ordinance 20-06, amending chapter 1060, garbage and rubbish collection and disposal. Consideration of approving employment agreements for the city clerk, DPW director, and chief financial officer. Consideration of budget amendment 2020-5 for fiscal year end June 30th, 2020. Consideration of Salt City Rock and Blues Incorporated to hold a Labor Fest event scheduled for Saturday, September 5th, 2020 from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. Consideration of Manistee Downtown Merchants to hold a sidewalk sale on Friday, August 7th and Saturday, August 8th, 2020. Consideration of applications for boards and commissioners. We'll now take public comments. The clerk will unmute and call each person who has called in to the meeting by the last 4 digits of their phone number and ask if they would like to comment on agenda items. Once complete, they will turn the meeting back over to the mayor. Go ahead, Heather.
Telephone number 4150. Do you have a comment or would you like to pass?
I'll pass.
Telephone number 5566. Do you have a comment or would you like to pass?
Pass.
Telephone number 1981. Do you have a comment or would you like to pass?
I will pass.
Number 2593. Do you have a comment? Number 6739. Do you have a comment?
No, thank you.
Mayor Zielinski, that's everybody that's waiting.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are on the consent agenda and considered by the city manager to be routine matters. Prior to approval of the consent agenda, any member of council may have an item from the consent agenda removed and taken up during the regular portion of the meeting. Consent agenda items include approval of minutes, payroll, invoices, notification regarding next work session. At this time, council could take action to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
Nick Szymanski, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Grubowski, I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Mayor Zielinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cipcic.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Mayor Pro-Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Unfinished business. Consideration of ordinance 20-06, amending chapter 1060, garbage and rubbish collection and disposal. Recommendations from the Ad hoc Refuge Committee have been approved by City Council and are currently being implemented. The City Attorney has proposed updated language in Chapter 1060 to reflect these changes. As an ordinance, 2 separate readings are required. This ordinance was introduced at the July 7th, 2020 meeting and could be adopted at this time. At this time, Council could take action to adopt ordinance 20-06, amending Chapter 1060, garbage and rubbish collection and disposal. Is there a motion?
Cooper, motion to accept.
Is there a second?
Grubowski, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item?
Mayor Zielinski, this is Beaton. My recollection is that we had talked about, and I thought we had pretty much of a consensus that there should be some flexibility as far as dumpsters that were hidden from the public view, not something that you couldn't see from the street. Do we still have that flexibility, and how is that going to be handled? I guess I'm asking this of the city staff right now.
Mr. Taylor?
This doesn't deal with dumpsters.
Oh, okay.
This is our This is our contract.
Oh, this is just the contract. All right, never mind.
Right, it's
I
dealing
thought
with
it was
the change.
contract.
Okay.
My mistake.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton,
Yes.
Mayor Zielinski,
Yes.
Councilmember Cipcic,
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski,
Yes.
Mayor Pro-Tem Grabowski,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Under new business, consideration of approving employment agreements for the city clerk, DPW director, and chief financial officer. When the city council approved the appointments for the police and fire chief positions, they also approved employment agreements for those positions. The police and fire chief positions are department directors. I believe it is appropriate to provide employment agreements to the remaining department directors, city clerk, DPW director, and chief financial officer. At this time, council can take action to approve employment agreements for the city clerk, DPW director, and chief financial officer. Is there a motion?
This is Martin Pontiac. I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
This is Councilman Szymanski. I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
This is Beaton. I have a few questions. Apparently, we've never had to have an employment agreement with these directors before, so I'm wondering what the thought process was to do it now. And a second part of that is that why do we have to approve all three of them together in one motion? So those are my questions, and I'd like it if the city manager could walk us through why we're doing this. And it seems like it's being rushed because there wasn't a work session on it. So give me some feedback.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes, as council knows, with the appointment of the police chief and fire chief at the last council meeting, council approved employment agreements for both positions. The reason that we forwarded employment agreements for those two positions is because they were coming out of the unions. They had a different retirement. They don't get Social Security, so both were very concerned about maintaining their current retirement system. They were also worried about any stability in the position. And so I worked with our labor attorney to put together an employment agreement that reflected what they wanted and what I agreed to. So once those were approved, because those two positions are department directors, I thought it not only appropriate but fair to offer an employment agreement to the remaining three department directors. And basically it just puts on paper what their current compensation is, what their current retirement program is, and then also provides for a severance pay if they're not terminated for cause. So basically, the only thing different or new in any of these employment agreements is just the termination and severance pay. And I'm of the opinion that the city manager and department directors are probably more susceptible to change and attitudes in the community at the council level, and require a little extra level of protection for those positions. So that's why once the agreements were approved for the police and fire chiefs, I thought it best that we proceed with the remaining 3 department heads. I thought it was appropriate, and most importantly, I thought it was fair to treat those 5 positions in the same or similar manner.
Mr. Taylor, this is Councilman Szym. I just want to confirm then that there is no additional financial costs associated with these agreements to the city of Manistee?
None. The only possibility would be if either myself or council, would be me, decided to terminate them without cause, then we would either allow them to work an additional 6 months or provide them a severance of 6 months. I think the likelihood of that is happening is very, very slim, but it's in there. Would employees without this agreement have some of those same benefits by law? Yeah, they're at-will employees, and they can be obviously let go for cause. Now, I don't know exactly how it would work if it wasn't for cause, and maybe the city attorney can weigh in on that. I'm guessing that they could file some kind of legal action against the city and go from there. But that's, like I say, that's the only thing different that doesn't reflect what they currently have.
Mr. Saylor, do you have any comments?
An at-will employee can be discharged for cause or for any reason or no reason at all. Their recourse against the city, if you discharged an at-will employee, would be if they felt they were discharged for some protected reason, like you discharge them for race, religion, age, familial status, something that the law recognizes you can't discharge an employee for, whether they're a contract employee or not. For the most part, if you're discharging an employee because for some other reason, or like I said, no reason at all, if they're at will, there's no liability for the city under that circumstance.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I think this is Grabowski. I think like Linda said, I would like to see this on a work session. I think this is, you got a lot of money pending here that's going around, and I just think we ought to talk about this.
Any other comments?
I think in my past experience, when companies downsize, people are let go. They're not necessarily being fired, but they've eliminated jobs in certain circumstances. And what they have allowed for is a certain amount of severance pay up to a certain amount, as well as they also allow you to apply for unemployment for a certain amount of months. So I was thinking that letting them apply for unemployment would be a good way to also put in this. But since we're not having a work session, the only chance that I had to talk about it is tonight, apparently.
Well, and again, I will defer to the city attorney, but it's my understanding any employee that's let go has a right to apply for unemployment benefits.
That would certainly be true. I mean, there's very limited circumstances where an employee's discharged. If there's a theft that could be established or something along those lines, they could be denied unemployment benefits. But by the same token, the severance sort of replaces unemployment benefits. If you're giving a severance package of whatever period of time it is, typically speaking, that employee is not going to be able to seek unemployment compensation for that same period of time.
Any other discussion, comments? I personally don't see an issue with it. I think it gives a level of reassurance to the department heads. This is something that's brand new. We have not seen it before. I just don't see an issue with it. I think it will give a level of comfort to our department heads. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Mayor Pro-Tem Grabowski.
No.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cipcic.
Yes.
Mayor Zielinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Beato.
No.
Councilmember Cooper.
No.
Motion passed 4-3.
Thank you. Moving on to consideration for budget amendments 2020-5 for fiscal year end June 30th, 2020. The City of Manistee is required by state law to ensure that actual expenditures do not exceed budgeted amounts. Over the course of the current fiscal year, unanticipated and under budgeted events and/or council approved expenditures have occurred. The proposed budget amendment addresses expenditures associated with these events to ensure compliance with state statutes regarding appropriations. Mr. Bradford, if you can hear me, do you want to go over those changes?
Hopefully this will be the last budget amendment for fiscal year 2020. We have one item on here for the DPW, and the invoice came in very late, but it was for repairs to a front end loader that ran its front of its bucket into a part of the Maple Street Bridge, and it caused some damage. It's kind of a freak accident that you wouldn't anticipate, but it was a rather costly expense. That's basically fully covered by insurance proceeds, so there's really no negative impact on the general fund reserves. However, it did put that line item over budget, and so we needed to do a budget amendment for that. And then the second item is also a little bit unusual. We applied for the tennis court resurfacing grant to the Manistee County Community Foundation, and that was done after the budget for fiscal year 20 was adopted. So we received that grant. There was a match, and I wasn't entirely sure, which of the vendors were going to be invoicing us before June 30th and which weren't. It's one of those projects that straddles fiscal years. So the total project for the budget for the project was $77,000. I just put that full amount in. We're not going to spend that much in this fiscal year because some of the invoices simply haven't come in, and they'll be in too late where we won't even have to accrue them. So more than likely, we'll spend a portion of this, and then the rest of it will have to be spent in fiscal year 2021, which will also require a budget amendment. But we're not going to spend $77,000, but I penciled it in because that was the full amount of the grant. And keep in mind, about $40,000 of that was covered by the Community Foundation. The rest of it is going to be covered by various funds of the city. So those are the two items on this budget amendment, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bradford. At this time, council can take action to adopt budget amendment 2020-5 for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. Is there a motion?
Cooper, motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
This is Beaton. I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Beato.
Yes.
Mayor Zielinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cipcic.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski,
Yes.
Mayor Pro-Tem Grabowski,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of Salt City Rock and Blues Incorporated to hold a Labor Fest event scheduled for Saturday, September 5th, 2020, from 4 p.m. through 11 p.m. The Salt City Rock and Blues Labor Fest will include a parade, live music, possibly kids games, and a hot air balloon. Food will be available, but no alcohol will be sold. All events will be held on Saturday, September 5th, 2020, between 4 p.m. and 11 p.m. The parade will start at the City Marina and end at the Lions Pavilion. The music event will take place at the Lions Pavilion at Douglas Park beginning at 5 p.m. At this time, council can take action to support and approve the request to use the city services, parks, and streets for the Salt City Rock and Blues Labor Fest event Saturday, September 5th, 2020, subject to department approval. Is there a motion?
Mayor Zielinski, this is Mick Szymanski.
Yes, sir.
The Labor Fest Committee on their board meeting on the 16th of July voted to cancel Labor Fest for this year, and they're going to have a virtual event and not a public event due to the coronavirus.
Okay, Mr. Saylor, how do we properly dispose of this motion?
I think without a motion being made, which there isn't one right now, there'd be no action necessary, and you can move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion? Hearing none, motion failed. Next, consideration of Manistee downtown merchants to hold a sidewalk sale on Friday, August 7th and Saturday, August 8th, 2020. The sidewalk sale would run on Friday, August 7th from 8 a.m. through 8 p.m. and Saturday, August 8th from 8 a.m. through 6 p.m. Vehicular traffic would be closed on River Street between Poplar and Maple Street. There would also be a food truck parked at 421 River Street, Ideal Kitchen, during the event. At this time, council can take action to support and approve the request for the Manistee Downtown Merchant Sidewalk Sale on Friday, August 7th and Saturday, August 8th, subject to department approval. Is there a motion?
I'll make a
Councilman
motion.
Cooper. Go ahead. Seconded, Cooper.
Did you get that, Heather?
Was that Councilmember Cipcic who made the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion?
I just have a quick question. Like, this is Jermaine, sorry. I think that if there's like something that the police department or the DPW needs the merchants to do to let them know quickly so they can, you know, prepare and get everything ready to go for that weekend.
Anything else?
This is Councilman Szymanski. I would also suggest that in their advertisement that they at least mention the fact that we are in COVID and that they should practice wearing masks in public and social distancing.
Anyone else? Mr. Taylor, has there been any discussion about social distancing and mask wearing on this event? Have you heard anything?
Not that I'm aware of. We can communicate that to the merchant group.
Thank you. If there's no other discussion, we'll take the roll. Please take the roll.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cipcic.
Yes.
Mayor Zielinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Beato.
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of applications to boards and commissions. The city clerk has taken applications to advertise vacancies to the Downtown Development Authority, Citizen Council, Harbor Commission, Oil and Gas Investment Board, Parks Commission, and Zoning Board of Appeals. Mayoral and manager appointments require a motion, second, and council vote of support. Nominations for council appointments do not require a second. After all nominations are made, council votes on nominees until one nominee receives majority support. The following applications have been received. The Parks Commission. There are 2 vacancies, terms ending 6/30/23. Applicants may be non-residents but must own real estate or a business profession, having a licensed business location in the city, or have a child attending school within the city. This is a mayoral appointment. I would like to appoint Robert Brooks of 352 Lakeshore Drive for the term ending 6/30/23. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion, Grabowski.
Is there a second?
I'll second Szymanski.
Is there any discussion?
Mayor Zielinski, this is a city clerk. I just wanted to clarify, there at this point is only 1 vacancy for this board. The other vacancy was filled at the last council meeting. This is just the same advertisement that we had used. We had a late application come in. So there is, at this point, just 1 vacancy.
Thank you for that clarification, Heather.
Yep.
If there's no discussion, please take the roll.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Mayor Zielinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cipcic.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Mayor Pro-Tem Grabowski. Mayor Pro-Tem Grabowski. Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Mayor Pro-Tem Grabowski, are you still with us? I'm not sure what happened. I see that he's there, but I'm not getting any sound from him. But we do have motion approved.
Thank you, Heather. Notice of communication, now, concerns and comments. Citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of city involvement. Citizens in attendance via phone shall be recognized by the city clerk for comments, limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to City Council will not be publicly read. Each person in the virtual waiting room will be called by the last 4 digits of their telephone number. Heather, go ahead and do that if you'd like, and also go right to city staff and elected officials if you would.
Okay. Number 1981, do you have a comment?
I have no comments.
Thank you. Number 2593, do you have a comment? Number 2593. Number 4150, do you have a comment?
I will pass.
Thank you. Number 5567, do you have a comment? Number 5567, do you have a comment? Number 6739, do you have a comment?
No, ma'am.
City Manager Thad Taylor, do you have any comments?
Yes, just want to remind council and the public that starting next Monday, we're going to the new City Hall hours. That will be from 7:30 a.m. till 6 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. will be closed to the public on Wednesday. However, the building will be staffed. And so there was a nice article in the newspaper today. It's also on our website and Facebook page. And then starting next week too, we're moving from our sustainability schedules, and all the employees will be back to their normal work schedules. That's all I have.
City Attorney?
Nothing, Heather. Thank you.
Finance Director?
Yes, I do have one thing. Mayor and members of council, as you know, we've been waiting for USDA Rural Development to consider at the national level our phase 2 grant loan application. And we've been periodically checking in with the state office and the state director to see where that is at. We finally got some information on that. As you recall, previously they had thought that they could do a $13.6 million loan and about a $4.4 million grant. They are unable to fund that out of state dollars, but had been hoping that the national office would be able to pool that up and be able to provide that grant. But we've been provided some information that has changed that equation. The first thing that's happened is that the interest rate on these loans has gone from 1 5/8 to 1.125. And part of the determination that USDA makes is what the loan itself, when you take that, what impact that has on your rates and what the ultimate user rates are. And because that interest rate went down fairly significantly, and because of the size of the loan, it actually reduced the potential grant that the city could get from the $4.4 million to the $2.4 million. So even if we were to get the grant, it would be about half of what it would have been. However, our application did not score as high as it generally needs on priority points at the national office level to be able to get the grant. So the state office has said, you know, you can try to reapply to get that grant, but there's no guarantees. We don't know what the funding is going to be, and it would push us back probably at least a year. Or you can just tell us that you want to forego the grant and go with the full loan, but at the lower interest rate. So we had a meeting with the city manager and the engineer and the public works director, and we don't have the luxury of being able to wait another year. Plus, there's no guarantees with the funding at the federal government, given everything with COVID. So we've told them that we want to go ahead and take it all as a loan, but at the lower interest rate. It does have a little bit of an impact on our cash flow, about $87,000 a year. We'll have higher loan payments than we would have with the grant, but keep in mind that grant would have been lower anyway. So that was based on the $4.4 million, where if we had gotten a grant, it would have only been 2.3. So on an apples to apples basis, it probably only increases that around, $50,000 from what it would have been. So the bottom line is we feel like we're going to be able to get this project and this loan closing moved ahead a lot quicker now, because the grant piece of that is off the table. And although it's unfortunate, it's a very attractive interest rate, and the bottom line is we have to get under construction so we can get this project done. So that's where we're at. It was out of our control, but I think this is it's a reasonable outcome given everything that's gone on. So I just wanted to bring council up to speed on that.
Mr. Bradford, this is Mick Szymanski. Will this impact the water bill at all?
At this point, and for this fiscal year, we're not anticipating any changes. Once the full debt service kicks in, we'll have to make some adjustments, but that'll be 18 months out. We'll have done another rate study update and refresher by then. So at this point, we're not anticipating any impacts within the next year anyway, and probably not moving forward as well, but we will have a new rate study to kind of support where we need to be.
Anything else, Mr. Bradford?
No, that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah. Please continue, Heather.
Chief Glass?
I have nothing. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Fire Chief Cameron?
Nothing else, Heather. Thank you.
DPW Director.
Nothing for tonight.
City Engineer. City Engineer, can you hear me? I'm sorry, I think I had you muted.
Oh. Thank you, Heather.
Yep. Councilmember Cooper.
Nothing, Heather.
Councilmember Beaton.
Just a couple things. First of all, I just wanted to reiterate that I know we talked about the DDA and the landscaping areas, but it's important to me, and I think it's probably important to the council members who have been through this. We've gone through a rough patch with the DDA, and it was really nice to see us come together at the year end and had come up with a plan and agree to work together and come up with a reasonable amount of money that the DDA was going to pay for services back to the city. And I just want to keep that goodwill going. So if I sounded a little harsh last time, it's because I just want to make sure that we preserve a good relationship with them. That being said, I'll change the subject to Mr. Taylor and Ed. Maybe you could give us an update on how much money has been saved by doing the work share program and taking advantage of the CARES Act. You had said somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000. Is there any way to quantify that yet?
Yeah. This is Thad. I had run the numbers, and we saved approximately $125,000 on the work share program. Separate from that, we also applied to the state for reimbursement of about $273,000 in payroll expenses for police and fire employees, and then 3 other employees for the months of April and May. We have not heard how much of that we'll receive, but we hope to hear that in the next few weeks. And then also, although it's not a savings, we applied for the hazardous pay for police and fire employees. They were the only ones eligible, and that request was for $19,000. And again, we'll hear in a couple of weeks whether we're awarded that. If we are awarded that $19,000 grant, then we would pay the officers and firefighters $1,000 per employee.
Okay. Great. I also want to just thank the board members for the Labor Fest decision that they made to cancel. I know they had to be hard, but I was so worried about this today that I reached out and I talked to a couple educators, and one of them was Ron Stillman. And I told him about my worries with having the children being together and playing games, and worried about school starting at the same time that this festival was being held. So I think he'll be glad to hear that it was canceled, and thank you for the wisdom on that. I appreciate that to people on the board. That's it.
Councilmember Cipcic.
Nothing, thank you.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes, on another matter, the board that is in charge of the sleigh bell parade met on the 20th, Monday, and they also voted to suspend the parade for this year. Now, there may be some Victorian weekend events, but not the parade. And for the same reasons that Ms. Beaton just alluded to, it just becomes very difficult to try to comply with executive orders with an event at that scale. especially when I think even some of our companies in town have now basically made it mandatory that you self-quarantine if you go to an event of over, I believe, 150 people. So there won't be any parade this year, but we're looking at a bigger and better parade in 2021. But there may still be some other events, hopefully downtown during that weekend.
Mayor Pro-Tem Grabowski.
Nothing.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
I've got nothing. Thank you.
Mayor Zielinski.
Yes, I have one thing. We need to talk a little bit about virtual meetings or in-person meetings. The Executive Order 2020-154 remains in effect during an emergency, and this is about we can continue to have virtual meetings as long as there is a disaster associated with COVID-19 and 28 days thereafter. Need to have some input from council as to what their wishes are as far as virtual meetings versus in-person meetings at this time. Now, moving forward, we can go virtual. If things improve, we could go back to in-person. Just trying to get some input so staff knows what to do.
Any input? This is Beaton. My opinion is if we go back to in-person, which I'm not opposed to, the spacing has to be good. I mean, it's not possible to space us 6 feet apart at the council table and have two together at a one side table. We really need to work on that. So that's my hesitation about being totally on board about that.
Mr. Taylor, do you want to address that issue a little bit and talk about maybe using the Ramsdale?
Yeah, we've reached out to the Ramsdale Theater, and you know, they've offered to allow council to have council meetings there. They have enough microphones, and they certainly have the sound system. The only thing they don't have is a means to tape the meeting, but we could reach out to PEG and ask for their assistance. And I agree with Councilmember Beaton. It's very difficult to maintain adequate social distancing in our council chambers and allow for much citizen participation. And we certainly can't bring in the staff because then we'd have, you know, just a handful of seats for the citizens. So if council wishes to have in-person meetings, we can reaffirm with the Ramsdale that we could use the facility for council meetings.
Need more input. Council members, what are your wishes?
Okay, Grabowski here. I wish to go back to in-person meetings.
Anybody else?
This is Jermaine. I just have a quick question. So if we move to Ramsdale and we're 6 feet apart, are we still supposed to sit there and have a meeting with our masks on? Because I don't think everybody's clear on that. And half the time they complain they can't hear us when we don't have a mask on. So, I mean.
Yeah, this is Thad. We can find out what the protocols are at the Ramsdale. I don't know if they're requiring masks for everybody that enters their facility if they maintain social distancing, but we can get that verified.
This is
Anybody else? Go ahead.
If we go into the Ramsdale for the meeting, I would be okay with that. I think there would be enough room for social distancing. I would be fine with that.
Yeah, this is Councilman Cooper. I'd be fine with that too.
Anybody else have any comments? Thank you very much for your input. I have nothing further. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll
I'll
make
make
that.
the motion.
Who made the motion?
I
Szymanski.
started it.
Oh. Was it
Yeah.
Szymanski or Grabowski?
I think Jim was much more enthusiastic.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for their input. Have a great evening. We're adjourned.